Hi, friends. Welcome to the December 2023 edition of Reset and Restore. So, today's gentle yoga class is going to be a restorative style yoga class. And what makes restorative yoga special and unique is that we use props to hold our bodies in the shapes, in the postures that we're practicing. And then we hold those shapes for longer than one would normally hold a yoga posture. And that's part of the reason that we use props to really support our bodies. Spending that extra time in these postures and using the props to support our bodies really allows the body and the nervous system to relax and let go and come into a deeper state of restorative practice as we move through. So, one of the other things I'd like to note is that the weather is cold, and since we're not going to be building a lot of heat in our class today, you might end up wanting to have more layers on than you would typically use for a class. So I'm going to use socks. I have on a sweatshirt and I have a blanket here next to me in case I get cold. So in terms of props today, I'm going to be using a bolster. So this is, a bolster that's created especially for practices like this. However, any kind of pillow, even the pillow from your bed or a pillow from your couch, a couch cushion, would work really well for this. And we'll use this to lift parts of our bodies up off the floor and allow us to really relax into them. And then I also have a blanket here. And this is a blanket I'm going to be using as a prop, not to keep myself warm. And so if you have an extra blanket nearby, that might be handy. You also might like to use a towel instead if you don't have one. And again, if you have any extra layers that you'd like to put on, socks can be especially nice because I don't know about you, but my feet get cold. So with all of that said, if you need to take a moment to gather your props, please go ahead and pause me and come back when you're ready. And otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. So for today's practice, we're going to get started on our backs, and we're going to do a version of reclined butterfly, or reclined bound angle. And so for this version, we'll bring our feet together. And for this version of the posture, I encourage you to have a very large diamond here between your legs. So no need to bring those heels in super close to the glutes. We're going to let them really stretch out a little bit and find our way onto our backs. Adjust yourself however you need to. Find a version of the posture that feels good. And really begin to relax into this posture, into this pose. I encourage you to close your eyes if it feels safe and accessible for you. And if you're needing to prop anything here, you might like to take that bolster or that pillow beneath the knees and let the knees be supported here in this posture. Alternatively, if you do not have a pillow or bolster or something else that would feel good, you can roll up a blanket and put that beneath your knees. You could also use 2 yoga blocks underneath the knees to prop them up. Really, anything you have nearby that would bring the knees up to an equal height would be perfectly wonderful. And when I'm in these restorative postures, I really like to bring hands to rest on the body whenever possible, creating a nice grounding, gentle energy. And now that we're here, let's begin to allow the breath to deepen. Sending that breath deep into the lungs and the belly. Beginning to really notice the weight of your body on the floor, on the mat. Can you soften the brow, relax your jaw, relax between the shoulder blades? Can you relax your belly and allow this next breath to be received in a softening belly? Can you soften the glutes? Relax your hands. Relax your feet. Feeling the body heavy here on the mat. Noticing the subtle movement of the chest, the belly as you breathe in and out. Noting without judgment the sensations that are arising in your body here. You might feel tingling, pulsing. You might be noticing the temperature of the air on your skin. Perhaps there are areas of discomfort, maybe even pain in the body. Can you bring a kind, gentle, non-judgmental attention to those areas of the body? Perhaps even offering a prayer of gratitude to this part of your body that's working so hard for you. Thank you back for everything you do for me. I'm so grateful for you, knees. I couldn't get around without you. And as we practice these longer postures in this class today, I'm sure you've already noticed your mind wandering away from the mat, wandering away from the body. This is completely normal. This is simply the mind doing its job. Anytime you notice that you are daydreaming or planning, thinking, ruminating, anytime you notice that your attention is no longer in the body or with the breath, taking a moment to notice, wandering mind, And bringing the attention back to the breath, back to the body here. And now let's take a nice deep breath in. And let it go slowly. And begin to awaken the body as we prepare to move into our second posture, stretching the legs out long on the mat, maybe circling the ankles one direction and then the other. And now let's bend our knees and place our feet flat on the floor. If you had any kind of prop beneath your knees, you might like to move it to the side until we're ready for it. And now we'll prepare to move into our second posture together. So turning on your left side, really any side will do, just remember which side you start with. Stacking knees on top of one another, you may need to scooch your hips back just a little bit. So we have knees stacked and ankles stacked here. And now let's press ourselves up to a seated position. So we've got those knees stacked, ankles are stacked, and we're simply going to turn our chest toward the floor here. Now this is a really nice place to have a blanket or a bolster to support the body. I'm going to use my blanket to support my head and my bolster to support my torso. So you can see I've kind of stacked them here, one on top of the other. And from here, I'm going to release my belly down onto the bolster. I like to bring hands stacked on top of one another and then bring my forehead to rest on my hands. If you're working with one prop here, you could put your cushion long ways on the mat to support both the torso and the forehead. So whichever expression of the posture is working for you right now, settling into that version of the posture. As we allow our bodies to sink into this gentle twist, reconnecting with the breath here. Now, if you're not working with props and it's uncomfortable to bring the torso toward the floor, another option would be to start on your back and allow both knees to fall to one side, and then take a reclining twist here. Once again, closing the eyes. So, working with the options that are available to you, with the version of the posture that feels most supportive to you. Wherever you are, deepening that breath, sending that breath deep into the belly. Allowing the tongue to fall away from the roof of the mouth. Relaxing the hips, the glutes, the pelvic floor. when we practice these supported postures and hold them for a longer period of time, it can really help us to settle into the posture in a way that feels safe for our nervous system. These supported postures can help us to restore a little bit of balance in the nervous system as we teach our bodies, as we teach our brains, as we teach all of those systems that work together in such a beautiful constellation, our inner galaxy, that we are safe right here in this moment, right now, right where we are, just as we are. Checking in with our bodily sensations, noticing how the body feels as we reach the last breaths of our time in this particular shape. Can you lengthen your exhales? Really giving your body permission to rest here. And now breathing deeply in and letting it go. And gently beginning to awaken, wiggling the toes, gently and slowly pressing up into a seated position. And from here, we'll move on to do the second side. So I'm going to move my props out of my way as I reorient myself. And we'll simply make our way to the other side, flipping over in whatever way feels good for you. So once again, thinking about stacking the knees, stacking the ankles. If you're going to join me in the propped version, we'll bring, just as we did on the first side, we'll bring our pillow or our blanket to support our head at the top of the mat, and the bolster here a little bit lower to support our torso. Or if you would like to, and then we'll simply rest here, perhaps making a pillow for the forehead by stacking one hand on top of the other, and then adjusting your way into your shape, connecting with the breath. Or if it would feel better for you, or you're working without props, we can simply bring that twist to the second side. So allowing the knees to fall to the second side and turning to look over that opposite shoulder. So wherever you are, whichever version of this shape is working for you today, relaxing into it, settling into it. Relaxing the belly. Perhaps scanning the body from head to toe and taking notice of any areas of the body that are feeling particularly tight or tender. Those parts of the body may be asking for some sort of tender loving care. And perhaps noticing what you need, what would feel good and caring and loving for your body is one small gift you can give yourself today. Lengthening the exhales here. Taking a moment to notice how this side feels compared to the first side. Is there somewhere you can soften and let go? Staying connected with the breath. Relaxing, letting go a little bit with each exhale. Noticing how the body feels as we come into the last breaths of this particular shape on this particular side. Knowing that this is a safe place for the body, for the mind. And now taking a nice deep breath in. And letting it go. Beginning to wiggle the toes and gently pressing up as you're ready. Taking just a minute here to notice how you feel after those first few postures. If you want to roll out the neck a little bit, maybe roll out the shoulders, maybe the wrists. Any gentle movements that would feel good for you right now. Allowing that intuition to guide you. Trusting that instinct. And we'll now move into our final posture before we rest together. So once again, let's remove any props from our mats. And we're going to find our way back onto the back. Adjusting until you feel comfortable on the back. Maybe doing a couple of pelvic tilts here. And then we'll plant our feet on the floor, fairly close to the glutes, but not a, huge deal. The distance between the heel and glutes. The idea, though, is that we want to feel grounded, that the feet feel connected, heavy, and supportive here. And from here, we're going to move into a supported bridge. So depending on your low back, you might like to use a rolled up blanket or a bolster or both. So maybe experiment with what feels good here. So what we'll do to move into our supported posture is simply roll the hips up to the sky and slide whatever prop you plan to use underneath the hips. Now, of course, you can also use blocks here, but I like the bolster because it's nice and soft. Now, if you move into a supported version of this posture and it feels like too much, completely fine to remove that prop, that bolster, whatever you've got there, and simply rest in your bridge pose with your tailbone resting on the floor. You might also try something a little bit lower, like a rolled up blanket. And if you're feeling like, I could use a little more, you can always slide another prop under there. Totally up to you. Now, another nice thing to use this blanket for here, although not such a big roll, is as a pillow. Simply cushioning the head, getting really comfortable here. You might like to cover yourself with a blanket. If you, like me, tend to get very cold, especially in these colder days. So whichever expression of the posture, however you're propping, whatever is working for you here, once you've settled in, let's allow those eyes to close. Allow the hands to rest gently on or beside the body. And as we're in this supported bridge, I wonder if it's possible to really feel into that support, to really notice what it feels like to have your body fully supported in this moment. How often in life do we get to feel fully supported? Kind of a rhetorical question, of course, but I've also noticed that, especially as we enter this end of the semester, end of the year, holiday season sort of mashup of a time, that so many of us are burning the candle on both ends. We are pouring out from ourselves to support and care for others. And for those of us who work in supportive roles, it's very common that we don't have a lot of support ourselves, or at least it can feel that way. So this is just a little tiny invitation to experiment with what it feels like, what it means to feel fully supported, even if it's just for a moment, even if it's just in a yoga asana, a yoga posture. Feeling fully supported in my yoga practice is one of the things that helps me bring my best self to my work, to my life, to my loved ones. Because when I feel supported, I have more resources to pour out for those around me. Feeling the weight of the body on the mat, feeling the weight of the tailbone, of the sits bones, of the low back on your prop or on the mat. I like the blanket not only because it provides warmth for me, but it also provides a little bit of comfort, offering that weight on top of the body. Sometimes when I'm in this posture, the supported bridge, even if I'm not cold, I like to place a folded up blanket on my belly because it feels protective and supportive and safe. So just offering ourselves, offering our nervous systems different ways, different opportunities to relax and unwind and find the support that we need and deserve. Lengthening the exhales here for a last few rounds of breath. And now breathing deeply in and letting it go. Beginning to awaken through the fingers and toes, blinking the eyes open. And from here, let's gently lift the hips up and remove any props that we have beneath the hips, if you've created a nice little pillow for yourself with your blanket or anything else, you can feel free to leave that there. And from here, we're simply going to move into a supported rest, a supported Shavasana. So, placing a bolster or a folded or rolled up blanket beneath the knees will simply extend the legs long on the mat. Feet can be hip width or a little wider. Toes can fall open. And again, finding a nice, comfortable place that feels supportive to rest the hands. Perhaps you'd like to cover yourself with a blanket. And we will spend a few moments here in our final resting posture, allowing the eyes to close, allowing the breath to deepen, extending those exhales a little longer than the inhales. When we extend the exhale longer than the inhale, there are many names for this breathing practice. Unequal breathing or Vishamavritti in the yogic tradition, but in the Western scientific model, we often call this diaphragmatic breathing. And we know from the science and also from the lived experience of many folks working with this breath practice that extending the exhales longer than the inhales helps to soothe the nervous system, calm the agitated mind, and the mechanism, if you're interested, is stimulation of the vagus nerve that runs through the center of our being. Stimulating the vagus nerve is one way to move out of the sympathetic nervous system mode, the fight or flight mode that anxiety and stress can so often leave us in, and switch on our parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest and digest mode of our nervous system. So even with a very gentle, supported, restorative practice like this, I still really like to end class in our Shavasana, allowing ourselves to take just a few moments of rest. I also like to end every class with Shavasana, regardless of whether we've been sweating and building heat or doing a more yin or restorative style class. Because one of the things that allows us to feel safe, allows our nervous systems to relax and really allow us to be present in our moment-to-moment experience, is when we know what to expect, when there are no big surprises coming our way. And so when we know that every class is going to end in this rest that is our right, it helps us to connect with that routine and to embrace the more challenging parts of our yoga practice, because we know that we're safe and we know where we're going to end up, right here in Shavasana, in our final resting pose. And now, taking a nice deep breath in and letting it go. Beginning to awaken through the fingers on the toes. Taking a nice big long stretch on the mat. Removing your props, or remaining here for as long as feels supportive and comfortable for you. If you'd like to end in a seated position with me, let's roll over to one side, your favorite side, and just take a moment here. Take a breath. And then gently press ourselves up into a seated position. Noticing now how the body feels after giving yourself the gift of rest for a few moments this afternoon. I hope that you feel just a little bit restored. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I hope to see you again next month. Take care. Be well. Lots of love.